I was leaning against the conference room wall, arms crossed, trying not to smirk as Jason, my department head, my so-called superior, proudly dug his own grave in front of the CEO and half the executive team. He was in full swing, doing what he did best, talking down to me while pretending to elevate himself. "Look," he said, smug as hell, "this role just requires a certain kind of toughness women don't naturally have. It's not personal, it's just biology." The room went dead quiet for a beat. He thought he'd just scored some kind of intellectual point, like he was the voice of reason. He had no idea that every word coming out of his mouth was sealing his fate. I caught the CEO glance at me, then back at him, expression unreadable. Jason kept going, oblivious. "I mean, Sarah here's smart, book smart, but this position's about grit, and honestly, I've never seen a woman handle the kind of pressure it takes to lead our biggest project." Oh, I was handling it all right. Just not in the way he expected. Because while he was spewing his prehistoric nonsense, the final piece of the trap I'd been setting for months was snapping shut, quietly, neatly, and completely. He didn't know the CEO had already seen the emails. Or the recordings. Or the report I'd compiled with receipts for every shady deal, every lie, every time he tried to push me out and take credit for my work. And right there, in front of the most powerful people in the company, I was about to watch him implode without even touching him. But before I tell you exactly how that moment played out, before I tell you how the bastard got everything he deserved, you need to know how I ended up here in the first place. 'Cause this wasn't some overnight revenge. This was months of swallowing anger, of playing nice while sharpening my knives, of letting him believe he was winning, until I took the whole damn game. It started 9 months ago in Dallas, Texas. I'd been with the company for 3 years, long enough to have built a solid track record, but apparently not long enough to avoid becoming a target the second someone insecure felt threatened. Jason joined as head of our department after the last manager left for a competitor. On his first day, he barely looked at me during introductions. Second day, he was already calling me sweetheart in front of clients. By the end of week 1, I knew he was trouble. Kind who smiles in meetings but slides the knife in during performance reviews. The kind who forgets to CC you on important emails and then acts surprised when you're out of the loop. First, I told myself to stay calm. Keep your head down, Sarah. Let your work speak for itself. But here's the thing, when a man like Jason feels insecure, your success doesn't matter. In fact, it makes you more of a threat. Within a month, he was reassigning my projects to his buddies, guys he played golf with, guys who called me princess when they thought it was funny. One afternoon, I overheard him in the break room telling one of them, "She's good for the small stuff, but we need someone who can actually close deals. Someone reliable." That's when I realized this wasn't going to blow over. If I didn't act, I was done. Now, here's where you might think I should have gone straight to HR. But if you've ever been in corporate America, you know HR isn't there for you, it's there for the company. And Jason? He was tight with upper management. I'd have been painted as the emotional female trying to sabotage a superior. So instead, I did something else. I started collecting. Every time he cut me out of a meeting, I logged it. Every time he made a sexist comment, I wrote down the date, time, and who was present. When he started taking credit for my proposals, I kept the original drafts with timestamps. And when I discovered he was skimming budget funds from one of our projects, that's when I knew I had him. But catching him was going to take time. I couldn't just burst in waving accusations, I needed undeniable proof. And I needed him to walk straight into the trap on his own. So I smiled. I played the good employee. I laughed at his lame jokes. I let him think I was harmless. And all the while I was building the case that would destroy him. If Jason thought I was just going to take his crap quietly, he was dead wrong. But I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of seeing me snap. Instead, I became his biggest fan. At least that's what it looked like. "Oh, Jason's leading that project? You're in good hands," I'd say in meetings, smiling sweetly while making sure everyone remembered he was responsible. Whenever something went wrong, I'd politely redirect questions to him. "You'll want to check with Jason, he's been handling that personally." First, he loved it. He thought I was finally falling in line. But slowly, cracks started to show. He couldn't juggle all the big projects he'd stolen from me, and deadlines started slipping. I could have stopped there, but fate handed me something better. One Friday afternoon, I got an email by mistake, a confidential spreadsheet from finance meant for Jason. It showed his department budget and a whole column of miscellaneous expenses that didn't add up. We're talking thousands of dollars with vague labels like consulting and vendor services. I stared at it for a long minute, heart pounding. It was the smoking gun I'd been hoping for, proof he was siphoning funds. And here's the twist: when I checked the vendor names, one of them was familiar. Too familiar. It was his ex-wife's maiden name. Now, I didn't know much about her, but I knew enough from office gossip to remember she hated him. Rumor was she left after catching him cheating with her best friend. Something told me she'd be very interested in hearing about this. I didn't go to her right away. First, I had to make sure I could trust her not to blow my cover. So I dug. Found her on LinkedIn. Saw she worked for a marketing agency in Austin. Sent a polite networking message under the guise of wanting advice about breaking into her industry. She responded the next day. Friendly. Warm. And when we eventually met for coffee, she casually mentioned, "Yeah, Jason and I, well, let's just say I'm not on his Christmas card list." I smiled. Guess we have that in common. When I showed her the spreadsheet, after making her swear she'd keep my name out of it, her eyes lit up. "Oh, I've been waiting for something like this." Turns out she had her own pile of dirt. Tax records, old invoices, proof he'd been playing games with money long before I came along. And she was more than willing to add it to my growing arsenal. From there, the sabotage became a team sport. I fed her updates from inside the company, carefully, never from my work account, never on company Wi-Fi. She fed me the kind of personal dirt that could ruin him beyond the office walls. Jason, meanwhile, was getting sloppy. Missing meetings. Forgetting details. And worst of all for him, he was starting to lose the CEO's trust. The beauty of it was I never had to raise my voice. I never had to accuse him directly. I just let him keep talking himself into deeper holes, while I quietly handed the shovel to people who hated him just as much as I did. By mid-December, I knew the perfect moment to strike was coming. He was about to pitch a massive expansion project to the board, the kind of thing that could make or break his career. I'd already planted enough seeds to make sure every board member would be watching him closely. And when that day came, let's just say, the bastard wouldn't see it coming until it was already too late. The week of the board presentation, the air in the office felt thick. Jason was strutting around like he'd already won some imaginary award. Every time he passed my desk, he'd tap on it like I was a secretary from the 1950s. "Wish me luck, sweetheart," he smirked. "Oh, you won't need luck," I said, smiling in a way I'm sure would have made my grandmother proud. What he didn't know was that behind that smile, the walls were closing in, faster than he could possibly imagine. The first surprise ally didn't come from my secret coffee meetings with his ex-wife. Came from the last place I expected, Daniel, the junior analyst he'd been using as an errand boy for months. Daniel cornered me in the parking garage one evening, eyes darting around like we were in some kind of spy movie. "Sarah, I don't know if you like me or not, but I think I need to show you something." He handed me a flash drive. It's everything. Budgets, emails, fake invoices. Stuff he had me clean up before sending to the board. I looked at him carefully. "Why give this to me?" "Because," Daniel said, "I'm not going down with him. And I've seen the way he treats you. It's messed up." That night, I plugged in the drive at home, my cat curled up beside me as if she knew I was about to set off fireworks. It wasn't just proof of financial misconduct, it was a gold mine. False travel expenses. Payments to consultants that didn't exist. and a very interesting thread of emails between Jason and a competitor company, basically offering to leak internal proposals if they took care of him in the future. The ex-wife's dirt had been good. But this was career death. 2 days before the big presentation, I arranged a quiet meeting with the CEO. Just me, her, and a manila folder stuffed with printed evidence. I didn't tell her what to do with it. I didn't ask her to fire him. I simply said, "When you see him present, remember this." She looked at me for a long time. "Sarah, this is big. Are you ready for what happens next?" I smiled. "Oh, I've been ready for months." The day of the presentation, the boardroom felt like a pressure cooker. Jason was wearing his power tie, the one he'd bragged about buying after a Vegas poker win. He kicked off with a slick PowerPoint, pacing the room like he owned it. And then it happened. Halfway through his pitch, the CEO interrupted him with a question. Not a hostile one. Just precise. Too precise. "Jason, could you explain the $48,000 allocated to external consultancy last quarter? I don't see supporting documentation in your proposal." He froze. Just a second too long. "Well, that's..." He tried to recover, but the stumble was obvious. The board members started flipping through their notes. She asked another question. Then another. Each one digging deeper into the numbers, the exact ones I'd given her. By the time he finished, his forehead was glistening, his smile forced. He knew something was off. He just didn't know how bad it was about to get. As the meeting ended, the CEO thanked him, and then asked me to stay behind for just a moment. Jason glanced at me on his way out, suspicion in his eyes. But there was nothing he could pin on me, not yet. What he didn't know was that the next move wasn't mine anymore. It was the board's. After that board meeting, something shifted in Jason. He was still strutting around, but it was off. The swagger was forced, the jokes sharper, the comments nastier. He was working later than usual, but not getting more done, just pacing in his office, blinds drawn, phone pressed to his ear. I didn't need to guess who was on the other end. Because a week after that presentation, Daniel sent me a single-line text from an unknown number. "They're digging." Quietly. The board's internal audit team had started pulling records, asking subtle questions. And Jason, being Jason, assumed the best way to handle suspicion was to bury it under more lies. That's when the desperation kicked in. He suddenly started being nice to me, offering me coffee, asking if I wanted to tag along to high-level meetings. I played along, of course. Smiled. Nodded. Took notes. And every time he let something slip, a missing invoice here, an unexplained expense there, I tucked it away for later. But he wasn't just trying to charm me. He was trying to rewrite the narrative. In a team meeting, he went on a rant about disloyal employees and office gossip killing productivity. He made a point of looking directly at me when he said it. I wanted to laugh. "You think I'm scared now?" "No, Jason. I'm just waiting for the fireworks." The twist came when I found out the investigation wasn't just about money anymore. One afternoon, I overheard the CEO's assistant on a call in the hallway. She said something about potential breach of NDA and talking to competitors. That was my confirmation. The emails from Daniel's flash drive had been noticed. Jason wasn't just facing an internal slap on the wrist. If they proved he'd been sharing company secrets, this could go legal. Which meant his downfall might be louder, messier, and a hell of a lot more public than I'd even hoped. Cracks widened fast. He started snapping at people in front of clients, missing deadlines, blaming his team loudly and in writing. One day, he even accused Daniel of losing a key proposal file, except I'd watched him delete it himself the night before. By mid-January, he was unraveling so badly that even people who used to defend him were avoiding him. And then, as if the universe wanted to add a little poetic justice, his ex-wife came through with the final push. She'd managed to get a hold of an old recording from years back, of him bragging to a friend about how easy it was to cook the books and make dumb bosses eat out of your hand. The friend was now in law enforcement. I didn't know exactly when the trap would snap shut, but I could feel it. The board had called an all-hands strategic meeting for the following Thursday. Jason was scheduled to present again. And this time there wouldn't be any polite questions or subtle hints. This time the bastard was going to bury himself live in front of everyone. Thursday morning felt different. The office was too quiet. People were in early, but no one was talking much, like they were waiting for a storm. Jason, though? He came in grinning, a fresh haircut, expensive suit, smelling like he'd bathed in cologne. He probably thought the board's strategic meeting was his chance to win them back. I followed him into the conference room, sitting just far enough away to watch without being obvious. The CEO started the meeting with the usual formalities. Then she turned to Jason. "Why don't you walk us through your updated proposal?" He jumped up, confident as ever, clicking through slides filled with buzzwords and inflated projections. But then, mid-sentence, the CEO raised a hand. "Jason, before you continue, there are a few points we'd like to clarify," she said. A board member, the kind who never speaks unless something's about to go very, very wrong, slid a thick folder across the table toward him. "Can you explain these discrepancies in your budget reports? And the payments to vendors, including this one?" She tapped a page. His ex-wife's maiden name stared back at him in bold print. His smile faltered. "That's a legitimate consultancy expense." The board member's voice was like a knife. Interesting, because according to state records, that business was dissolved 3 years ago. The room went cold. Another board member chimed in. "And while we're here, could you shed some light on these emails to a competitor outlining confidential project details? They're time-stamped during work hours, sent from your company account." You could see it, the exact moment he realized he was screwed. His face flushed red, his hands tightened on the folder. He stammered something about context and misunderstandings, but the CEO cut him off. "This isn't a misunderstanding, Jason. This is a breach of trust, a breach of policy, and potentially a breach of the law." That's when the door opened. 2 security guys walked in, quiet but very, very present. Jason tried to laugh it off. "You can't be serious." The CEO's voice was ice. "Hand over your badge. You are relieved of your duties effective immediately. You'll be escorted from the premises. We'll be in touch regarding the legal proceedings." The silence was deafening as he gathered his things. He didn't look at me, didn't look at anyone. But as he passed my chair, I caught his reflection in the glass wall, eyes wide, mouth tight. He knew. He knew it had been me. And I didn't say a word. By the end of the day, the whole office knew. His ex-wife's recording? Yeah, it somehow made its way to a journalist who'd been sniffing around corporate fraud cases. 2 days later, there was an article online with his name in the headline. Daniel got promoted to a permanent analyst role. I got full control of the projects he'd stolen from me. The CEO personally thanked me for my discretion and professionalism. I smiled politely, but in my head I was thinking, professionalism? Sure. But make no mistake, this was payback. Karma didn't just come for Jason. Came with teeth. And I didn't have to raise my voice once. So now I'm curious, if you were in my shoes, would you have let Jason burn himself out like I did? Or would you have taken him down faster? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I read every single one. And if you love stories where toxic people get exactly what they deserve, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next twist. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that karma's real, and sometimes it just needs a little push.